Hello, I'm Dave Cross. I built the line of succession website, and over the next few minutes I'd like to show you some of the features on that site so that you can get the most out of browsing it. So to start off, this is the page you'll see when you first visit lineofsuccession.co.uk. It contains a list of the line of succession, or at least the first 30 names on the line of succession on the current date when you visit the site. So I'm making this video on the 20th of January, and this is the top 20 names in the line of succession on this date, all the way from Prince Charles at the top down to Lady Cosima Windsor at number 30. So the first thing to notice is that pretty much every date that you see on the site is a link. These blue dates here are both links, and all of these dates down here are also links. If we click on any of these links, then the site will give us the line of succession on the date that you've clicked on. So here you see we've gone back to the day that the Queen was born, when the current king was George V, and this is the line of succession on that date, again from number 1, Prince Edward the Prince of Wales, through to number 30, who at the time was Prince Gottfried. Interestingly, at number 3, aged 0, you'll see Princess Elizabeth of York, and the name in brackets here tells us that this is the little girl who one day would become Queen Elizabeth II. So this is true of any date that you see on the site. The only possible exception is if somebody is born, for example, before the earliest date that the site covers. Currently the site goes back to the start of George IV's reign in 1820, so 200 years ago. But if a date falls before that reign, then it won't be linkable. We go back to the front page. We've also got these previous change and previous day, so you can go backwards and forwards by a day at a time, but that's often not particularly interesting because the line of succession doesn't change particularly often. So we have the previous change so that we can go back and see the various changes. And if you'll notice, if you visit a page where a change took place, then we have this new widget that appears on the right hand side here telling you what happened on that date. So that's the first method of getting around the site. Any date that you can click on will show you the line of succession on that date. But at the top on the menu bar here we have a couple more interesting links. We have this Browse Interesting Dates page, and what we've done here is to pull out a number of interesting links, or what we think are interesting links. Basically, we've got the start of the reigns of the various monarchs that we cover, along with the dates of jubilees. So, for example, I'm just old enough to remember the Silver Jubilee in 1977, and here we see what the line of succession was on the date when the Queen celebrated 25 years on the throne. We've also got this timeline of changes page, and that's a little bit more detailed than the interesting dates page. What I've got here is a list of every change to the top 30 in the line of succession over the 200 years that we cover, and so you can see everything that changed. And again, you've got date links here which will show you the line of succession on those dates. So that's three methods to find dates, by clicking any date that you see, by looking at the interesting dates, or by looking at the complete timeline of changes. There's one more method you can do. At the top right of the site here, you'll see a standard browser date picker widget, so you can put in any date that you want here, click the change date button, and that will show us the line of succession on the date that you've chosen. As I said, it's a standard browser date picker widget, so you can just choose a date easily using that. So that's all the 4 different ways that you can find the line of succession for various dates on the site. There's one other feature that I want to bring to your attention, and that's the person pages. We've seen that all of the dates are links, but all of the people's names are also links. So if we click on Queen Elizabeth II's link, firstly, we saw earlier that when she was born, she was Princess Elizabeth of York, and we have this little block of information showing you how her title changed during her life. Down at the bottom, we have only one parent, the parent that put her on the line of succession, so her father, King George VI, and her children. And again, all of these are links to person pages. But perhaps most interestingly, for the line of succession, we have this list of the positions. This is the various positions in the line of succession that the person has held during their lifetime. And here we have the data for the Queen. You'll see that when she was born, she was 3rd in line to the throne. Then the people in front of her were her uncle, who became Edward VIII, and her father, who became George VI. As George V died on January 20th, 1936, she rose to 2nd place. When her uncle abdicated, she rose to 1st place, and then obviously when her father died, she became monarch and popped off the top with the line of succession. For people near the top of the line of succession, you'll often see that kind of pattern. But if we look, for example, at Princess Anne, we see a slightly more interesting pattern. When she was born, she was 3rd in line, behind her mother and her elder brother, Prince Charles. Then in February 1952, her grandfather dies and her mother becomes queen, so she bumps up a place to 2nd in line behind Prince Charles. She stays there for 12 years until her brother Andrew is born, and then a couple of years later Edward comes along. Each of these, because at the time men took preference over women in the line of succession, each of these would bump her down a place. She then stayed comfortably at number 4 for about 20 years before Prince William and then Prince Harry were born. She was then bumped down 2 more places as Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice were born. These next ones are Prince Edward's children, and then we have Prince William and Prince Harry's children. Each of these children being born bumps Princess Anne down a position in the line of succession. And that is pretty much all I wanted to show you in this first video. Please enjoy trying the site out and let me know if you have any further questions. Thank you and goodbye.